Welcome to more tales. Am I the a-hole for wanting my baby to have my last name after my boyfriend threatened court over it? I, 18F, and my boyfriend, 19M, are facing somewhat serious drama, and I am genuinely at a loss. I am currently 39 weeks pregnant and scheduled to be induced in just a couple of days. Things between us were honestly fine until a couple of weeks ago when I told him that I wanted the baby to have my last name. That single conversation is what started all of this, and it has spiraled into an absolute nightmare right when I should be focusing on bringing our child into the world. I have always had a specific name picked out for my future children, long before I even met him. When we sat down to talk about it, I explained that I wanted the first name because it is the one I have loved since I was a little girl, but I made it clear that I was going to let him pick the middle name. He completely flipped out. He started raising his voice, accusing me of trying to erase him from our child's life entirely. I tried to calm him down and told him that was absolutely not true. I explained that I just wanted the baby to have my name, and I pointed out that guys only really care about the last name for their own ego. That comment made things so much worse. He turned it right back on me, claiming that I was projecting, being a complete hypocrite, and trying to control everything. The fallout from that argument has been devastating. Now, he is flatly refusing to sign the birth certificate at the hospital. He told me he isn't going to cooperate with the paperwork at all and will just go straight to court to establish his parental rights legally. On top of that, he demanded a DNA test out of nowhere. We both know he is the father, but by demanding a test publicly, he has caused people in our social circle to start whispering that I must have cheated on him. I did not cheat. Not even close. But every single time I try to defend myself or clear my name, he acts like I am just digging myself into a deeper hole. The punishment didn't stop there. He is also refusing to give me any of the essential baby stuff we need. His family bought a crib, bottles, and clothes, and he currently has the car seat in his possession, which I literally need just to be allowed to leave the hospital with the baby. He has completely pulled away from me emotionally and physically. He takes hours, sometimes even days, to respond to my text messages now. It feels like a calculated move to punish me for not giving in to his demands, leaving me stranded and anxious right before my induction. I get that he is angry, but I am the one who is about to go through labor, and he is making an already terrifying situation so much harder. To make matters worse, both my family and his family are constantly in my ear, taking sides and adding to the chaos. Some people are telling me that he is just scared and trying to make sure he is included as a father. Others are telling me that I am being selfish and trying to push him out of the picture entirely. There is a huge part of this that I haven't told him because I don't want to sound dramatic, but I am absolutely terrified of dying in childbirth. That heavy, dark thought has been lingering in the back of my head this entire pregnancy. Part of the reason I wanted the baby to have my last name was so that if the worst happened to me during delivery, our child would always carry a physical piece of me and my family wherever they go. But he doesn't see my fear. He just sees me as the bad guy. And honestly, with everyone shouting their opinions at me, maybe I am. I've decided I'm going to send this post to him. Since he only responds like once a day anyway, I'll just wait for him to read it and text back. I'm terrified of what he will say, but I need him to at least see how serious this is and how much pain he is causing me. I'm thinking of compromised options now, like using both our last names and just making one of them the middle name, so the baby has a piece of both of us without all this fighting. I sent him the post, and he texted back after reading everything. His response was incredibly cold. He said I basically tried to vilify him to a bunch of strangers for just doing what the court says he should do, and he said he doesn't understand why I'm so scared of the legal process. He called me a hypocrite for saying this whole situation is a stupid argument, while still making it the specific hill I'm willing to die on. He reminded me that he can't legally force me to name the baby anything on the initial paperwork, but he warned me that if I don't give him a say right now, he'll just let the court decide what his role in the baby's life will be going forward. Then the text conversation got really nasty. He told me that if I actually do die in childbirth, he will immediately change the baby's full name the second he gets custody, and since I'm choosing the name now without his input, I can't be mad if he does the exact same thing to me later. When I brought up the compromise of using both last names with one as a middle name, he said he can't stop me legally from writing that down at the hospital, but that's exactly why he's going to court, to establish his rights since I refuse to respect his choices. He also told me he doesn't trust me anymore because I posted our business online, and he stated he will only communicate with me over text from now on. He even went after the people who commented on my situation. He texted that the only people taking my side are bitter women and single moms, who are mad that their own co-parents actually wanted a say in their child's life. According to him, none of those people are actually happy, and if they had real families, they wouldn't be painting a father who goes through the courts to see his kid as a villain. He said he doesn't get why strangers even care if he wants to establish his legal rights, and he thinks everyone is just mad that he actually wants to be actively involved in the baby's life. He finished his message by telling me that if I keep this up, I'll end up in the exact same miserable position as the women commenting on here. So, am I wrong for wanting my baby to have my last name even though my boyfriend is refusing to help me now? Update. I am still in the hospital, but I asked my cousin to help me write this because too much has happened for me to type everything myself. Some of you already know that my delivery did not go the way anyone expected. I ended up developing blood poisoning after giving birth, and my condition became serious enough that I was placed into a medically induced coma. I'm awake now, but recovery has been slow. I still get tired very quickly, and there are large parts of those first few days that I don't remember at all. Most of what I know happened came from my family, the nurses, and the screenshots everyone started collecting while I was unconscious. One of the first things my cousin showed me was everything he had been posting online during that time. We made sure to save every post because I honestly couldn't believe what I was reading. It made me feel sick in a way I can't really describe. While I was lying in intensive care connected to machines, he was spending his time posting about me and our daughter as though this entire situation was some public debate he needed to win. Instead of focusing on the fact that the mother of his child was fighting a life-threatening infection, he continued repeating the same narrative over and over again. According to him, I was selfish, controlling, and determined to erase him from our daughter's life. Everything that happened before the birth was rewritten to make it sound like I had been unreasonable from the very beginning. Reading those posts after waking up felt surreal because they barely resembled reality. He also doubled down on the comments he made before. Anyone who disagreed with him was dismissed as a bitter woman or a single mom who supposedly hated involved fathers. He mocked complete strangers for sympathizing with me, insisting they only supported me because of their own failed relationships. Meanwhile, I wasn't even conscious enough to defend myself. I wasn't sitting at home reading comments or arguing with people online. I was in intensive care with doctors monitoring me around the clock, and somehow he still chose to make himself the center of attention. Looking back now, that part hurts almost as much as everything else. It wasn't just that he disagreed with me about our daughter's name anymore. It became about proving he was right, even while my family had no idea whether I was going to survive. The timing of it all is what makes it impossible for me to see any of this as simple anger or frustration. He knew exactly where I was and what condition I was in. The worst part, though, was finding out what happened with our daughter's name. Everyone close to me knew I had loved that name since I was a little girl. It wasn't something I suddenly picked because we argued. I'd talked about it for years, long before I even met him. He knew how important it was to me because we'd had conversations about it throughout my pregnancy. While I was unconscious, he decided to change it. He didn't quietly make the decision because there was some emergency that required it. He openly bragged about it online afterward as though he'd finally won some long-running battle. He gave our daughter his last name and described it as a compromise, despite the fact that I wasn't awake to have any say in the decision. There wasn't a conversation. There wasn't any attempt to wait until I recovered enough to discuss it. He simply acted while I couldn't stop him. My cousin actually saw him at the hospital around that time. She told me he wasn't upset or overwhelmed by everything that was happening. If anything, she said he looked pleased with himself. She described him as smug and almost excited, like he'd achieved something important. That's the point where she completely lost her patience with him. She confronted him because she couldn't understand how someone could behave like that while the baby's mother was lying in the ICU. Instead of showing concern for my condition, he seemed more interested in talking about the naming situation and how everything had finally gone his way. Knowing that happened while I was completely unaware of anything around me has been one of the hardest things to process. As if that wasn't enough, he also made an entirely separate post asking strangers to suggest cute nicknames for our daughter because, according to him, I had refused to let him choose anything. Reading that afterward made my stomach turn. At that point, it didn't even feel like he was posting because he wanted advice anymore. It felt like he wanted validation. Every update revolved around making sure people saw him as the reasonable parent who had overcome some terrible obstacle, while I was reduced to the villain in a story I wasn't even conscious enough to participate in. The more screenshots my family showed me, the clearer the pattern became. He eventually wrote another dramatic update describing himself, as though he'd suddenly become a heroic single father. He talked about bringing our daughter home from the hospital as if it were some incredible achievement and proof that he had stepped up when no one else would. The reality was much less dramatic. The hospital couldn't keep a healthy newborn indefinitely, and I was unconscious. Naturally, our daughter had to be discharged into the care of a parent. That wasn't some special victory or reward. It was simply what had to happen because I physically couldn't leave the hospital. What upset my family wasn't that he brought her home. It was everything surrounding it. Instead of acknowledging why that happened, he used the situation to build another version of events where he became the selfless father doing everything alone while portraying my relatives as difficult people who were supposedly making his life harder. Several members of my family tried to stay informed about both me and the baby, but according to his posts, they were somehow harassing him simply for wanting updates. Reading everything together painted a picture that barely resembled what was actually happening. Over the last few days, I've spent a lot of time going through messages, hospital records, screenshots, and conversations with my family because I genuinely wanted to understand everything I'd missed. Every new piece of information only confirmed that my fears before giving birth hadn't come from nowhere. Before all of this happened, people told me I was overreacting by worrying he would eventually push me aside if things didn't go his way. I questioned myself more than once because I didn't want to believe someone I was having a child with would actually behave like that. Instead, the moment I was unable to speak for myself, he made permanent decisions, reshaped the story online, and celebrated them publicly. That's something I'll never forget. Thank you for visiting More Tales.